Yo, this is the craziest chapter in a while. We see the aftermath of the Robin and Saul stuff, of course. More Loki screen time and some crazy Loki twists. And the craziest of all, the Shanks' evil twin theories have been confirmed, so make sure to stay tuned for this absolutely insane chapter. This should be the last of the year, I believe, unless we get early leaks. But either way, Oda went out with a bang this year for sure. Chill the parking within and smash that like button if you enjoy seeing One Piece reviews like this one and want to keep them coming on the channel. Make this the video you join the Nakama if you haven't already by subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss future One Piece videos and updates. And now without further ado, let's jump into it, spoilers and all. So this chapter is called Owl Library, and it starts where the last one ended with that beautiful reunion with Robin and Saul finally coming to fruition. Luffy officially thanks Saul for helping Robin while extending his hand to greet him. Luffy says, Saul, oh Saul, I understand that one of my underlings have been in your care. You have my appreciation. Allow me to introduce myself. Hilariously enough, Luffy is talking like Yakuza, so everyone is amused because they have no idea where Luffy learned those words. Sanji even asks him, where did you even learn that from? Robin interrupts Luffy though and says, this is Luffy to Saul. Saul laughs, and not surprisingly, he's heard of our Yonko. He says, I know, Luffy is a big name. You've met good friends, Robin. You finally found them, right? And again, we see that childlikeness in Robin like last chapter. She unreservedly and excitedly says yes. The Nakama will protect someone like me. She's no longer the guarded, mature-seeming person she was back in the day. All of the Straw Hat crew except our Tier List 3, meaning Luffy, Zoro, and Jinbei, start crying again, thinking they will protect Robin forever. And Saul, like Luffy did to him, thanks them for protecting Robin. Lilith then raises some interesting stuff, and I totally called this recently when it was remarked how Elbaf is perfect for scientists, but more on that in a bit. First, she introduces herself to Saul as Vegapunk. She and Bonnie traveled with the Straw Hat crew and Girl in the Skull, though then asks Jinbei to take out one of the machine boxes she brought from the Skull. Gert helps Jinbei in taking it out, and we see that it is a sealed capsule with a Vega sticker attached to it. Jinbei says they carried it out of Egghead based on Vegapunk's instructions, and asks what's inside. While most of you won't be surprised with Oda's history of not keeping characters unaligned, so to speak, but Lola says it's me, aka it's Vegapunk. But as I'll get into, it kind of makes sense here. Luffy in shock says Vegapunk's clone, and Lilith confirms that he's right. But unlike us satellites, this is a complete replicate. This Vegapunk was the one who visited Elbaf 20 years ago. The government would naturally start to have suspicions if Stella just up and left his lab for several months, right? We have managed to get it out by putting it in the nutrient medium, but we lack the machinery to bring it out of the box safely. Thus, Lilith says she's going to stay in Elbaf, like I predicted, and build a new laboratory to revive Vegapunk with this clone body, and also to cure Kuma. Bonnie, of course, is very excited to hear this. So yeah, Lilith will not be the final full-time Straw Hat, as some might have thought, but will understandably stay here where conditions are as perfect as you can expect for a scientist, as was remarked earlier in this arc. And the original Vegapunk won't be coming back, he is gone, but it's understandable that he had a clone of himself that he used to trick the government, and honestly, not too surprised here. I think Oda did it well enough so that it doesn't cheapen the original sacrifice, which keep in mind was already lacking in finality to begin with because of the surviving satellites. Moving on, and the Giants will give the Straw Hat crew a school tour, while Robin, Saul, Chopper, Lilith, and Bonnie go to the Owl Library. We see the outside of the school building, and it looks similar to the Owl Library. The crew meets giant kids playing near Warrior Spring before going to the school tour. Usopp asks them if they also intend on sailing one day to live adventures and fight some ruffians. But surprisingly, someone answers to Usopp that is not the trend anymore. And that just seems so meta mentioning trends here. Zoro says, that came from an adult just now. Usopp asks, what do you mean? And we are told by the giant kids themselves that they'd better get out of the way, meaning the Straw Hats, or they'll be scolded since they're on top of their teacher, Ripley. So this is the Ripley we've been hearing about. During the conversation, Luffy and Usopp were standing on top of her while she was lying on the floor. Luffy is on top of her chest, like when he met Shirahoshi. Not surprisingly, Oda also made Ripley a beautiful giant warrior, and she has a lion tattoo on her face. She is the biology teacher of the Walrus Academy. Usopp says, we were stepping on a giant, sorry. But Ripley shrugs it off way easier than Shirahoshi did and laughs, saying, "Don't worry about it. Not like you're heavy." That aside, you are surprised, right? Elbaf warriors wreaking havoc across the world. That's 100 years ago. This is not the era of violence, plundering, and war anymore. And you let me know how you feel about that. Like, it sounds good in theory, but it kind of gives me Gohan becoming a scholar instead of a fighter vibe, but on an island scale for all of these epic legendary warriors. And I was always of the opinion that Gohan should stay a warrior, but maybe that's just me. She further explains that giant kids, especially in Boris Academy, are more polite and peaceful compared to other kids in Elbaf because the school follows the will of the late King Harold, who turns out wasn't into the old violent ways. King Harold wanted Elbaf to become a peaceful nation that does trades and negotiations instead of war. That's why he didn't get along with the elders of Elbaf. Again, is that a clue that the elders might be behind it and Loki was framed? I don't know, but we're gonna get some interesting stuff about Loki later on. After he was killed by Loki, we're told Elbaf has no king. The obvious issue I see is what happens when Elbaf becomes fully peaceful and then the world government or someone else comes to enforce their own laws through their might. All of a sudden, you don't have those warriors who could have defended the country's freedom. We'll see how Oda chooses to handle this, but that's what's crossing my mind during this whole old versus new way thing. The peaceful ways sound nice, but in reality, would they just become a puppet or slave to the strong who come and invade them? That's the question. Ripley, though, says that she's from the last generation of warriors, so she would love to see Luffy's white fort, meaning Year 5. According to Elbaf mythology, there was once a warrior who looked just like that. Of course, we know well the sun god lore here. Then we cut to Robin, Chopper, Lilith, Bonnie, and Saul, who arrive to the Owl Library. Before entering, Saul tells Robin what happened to O'Hara's books and how he managed to get them back. He says, "When I arrived to Elbaf after what happened in O'Hara, I just couldn't get my mind off the records that the scholars sacrificed their lives for. So I asked Hyrutin and his gang for help, and we returned to O'Hara once more. And when I saw those tiny books intact, I couldn't help but cry. Now then, let's get inside. And Robin, better be careful with that book you have in your hands." Robin says, "Oh," and Chopper says, "What?" Suddenly, when they enter the library, the book Robin was holding in her hands turns into giant size, and the book Robin was carrying is now bigger than her. Like I've been saying, Oda is really getting creative beyond your imagination with Elbaf, clearly not letting any limitations that seem to have been established, whether written or unwritten, in the rest of the world limit what can happen here. And this begs the question, if books can get bigger here so easily, can people eventually too? Is that why travelers were warned not to stay here for too long? We can't be sure at this point, but honestly, if you're asking me, nothing would surprise me about Elbaf at this point. We finally get to see the Owl Library. It's shown off in a beautiful 2-page double spread. It's a mysterious library full of giant books. Around the giant bookcases, there are a lot of massive tree branches hanging around them, and on one of the branches we can even see a giant owl sleeping. So the name Owl Library seems pretty fitting now, doesn't it? I love libraries personally, and I love reading, and this is all very cool, but I gotta admit, I'd be annoyed that I got to this awesome library with all these awesome rare books, and then it turns out that they were all too big for me to read normally. Like, even if I could pull the page with my whole body and read from a distance, it would still be super annoying. So, yeah. Maybe that's just me. So maybe it's a good thing that if people stay long enough, they become giants themselves, and then they could read all of these giant books normally. But moving on. Saul laughs and says, "How's that? Are you surprised? These are the books from back then in O'Hara and now in giant size. This is the mysterious Owl Library, where the books grow large upon entering. These are all the records that O'Hara protected 22 years ago. We kept our eyes open while searching, so we could bring back every single one of them, every last one." Now, the fact that they got every last one is absolutely insane and, yeah, almost impossible. So congrats and props to them for that. And I always appreciate when they talk about, and just the fact that they did save the work and forbidden knowledge that the scholars sacrificed their lives for, it would all seem in vain if it was lost. Chopper and Bonnie say, "Whoa," and then Robin remembers the words that Clover said to her in the Tree of Knowledge when she was 2 years old, and then she cries with happiness. Clover told her, "This is the world's best library. You like books?" And that's the cool thing about books. You can transfer the world's best library to other places, like Elbath in this case. What's important is where the books are. Of course, it would be more complicated transferring them back now that they're giant, but that's a different story. Saul finally says, "I'm so glad that the day I can show you all of this has finally come," and he laughs. And just again, I wonder if it may be fruitful to think about how the men marked by flames should know how to find a poneglyph. And here we have a burned soul with the knowledge of the world's greatest library at his fingertips. If it doesn't end up being him, he was definitely one big red herring, I gotta say. And now we cut to Loki in the underworld. He's talking to someone called Mosa, but we don't know if it's a man or a woman. We do know that they talk in a polite way and they seem timid. Loki and Mosa haven't met, but they talk to each other for long periods of time using Den Moshi, since Loki has a lot of time to kill and is bored. Over time, Loki has come to consider Mosa a friend and calls them Mosako, which indicates that Loki respects Mosa. And as we'll see, it's not the kind of friendship you'd expect from Loki. We already know Mosa is polite and timid, which doesn't really mesh well with what we know about Loki. Furthermore, Loki says, "Are you still traumatized about the horrifying experience you got to me about Mosa?" Mosa says, "Yeah, I'm still shaken by it." Loki then says, "If I had been there, I would have killed all of them for you, Mosa." So here we're getting some protectiveness here from Loki, and Mosa is beginning to notice that even if he uses scary words, Loki is actually kind-hearted. How many of you saw that come? This makes Loki angry hilariously enough, but here we have Oda at it again. Just as it seemed like Loki might be pure evil, we get a moment like this which shows him caring about a kind and timid friend in his own way, and the friend even calls him kind-hearted. So such a scene is definitely suggesting that there is more to Loki, and perhaps, as I alluded to earlier, the story about him killing his father, there is more to that than meets the eye. Perhaps those elders that didn't get along with the king had a hand to play in it. Earlier I talked about Gohan, but Loki definitely reminds me more of Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z. It's such a Vegeta thing to do when he gets upset about someone calling him kind. Then we get to hands down the craziest, most interesting part of the chapter, which is saying a lot because that Loki stuff was pretty good. We are at the village where the crew arrived last chapter. The giants are drinking while they wait for the Straw Hats to come back. Bragi says, "Hey, the party hasn't started yet. We're killing time through drinking." The giants say, "Well, you are drinking too much." Suddenly, here we go, a black lightning strikes in the village's castle. In what is described as an absolutely epic final double page, we see that a magic circle like the Gorosei one has appeared in the throne room of the castle. Of course, Oda can let no throne remain empty in One Piece. This circle, unlike the other one we saw, has no number on it, but obviously it still suggests a relation to the world government authorities and Ino-sama himself. From the magic circle, two people with black cloaks appear kneeling on the ground. First one is none other than the hooded Shanks figure, or I should say Shanks-looking figure, who was talking to the Gorosei during the last revelry. So long people have been talking about that moment and how it may not be Shanks at all because we didn't see his scar that he got from Blackbeard, and now, bam, we finally have confirmation that it was not him. We waited so long for this. The second figure looks like a woman with bandages covering her mouth and her hair covering her right eye. We're told by the editor that we have invaders. So yes, it looks like we officially got Shanks' evil twin brother making his appearance. Although we clearly got it before, we just didn't know for sure it was him during the revelry. Another question I have is, did someone sneak into Elbath first to create the magic summoning circle? Since I assumed there may need to be someone present to summon others here, like when Saturn was on Egghead. But these full spoilers have me thinking it may be that they could actually just teleport anywhere they want, when they want, which would be crazy powerful. We'll know more when we get the officially translated pages, but man, what a way to finish off the year 2024. Shanks' family is all over the place right now, super relevant to the story, and I love to see it. Here's a twist for you. Looks like our crew may even need Loki's help against these guys. Can't wait to find out more, and don't forget to let me know what you thought about this chapter and this insane twist in the comments below. For me, it did a complete 180 since the guy that was being set up seemingly to be the villain of the arc seems to be not so bad anymore, and then we get a crazy new villain being brought into the thick of it. What a twist. What a cliffhanger to end off the year. But if you did enjoy this one, then you too think you'll also enjoy this video linked on screen right now. Like and subscribe for more One Piece, and I'll see you in the next one.